California's higher education system has been critical to the state's past economic progress. And a college education is becoming more important as increasingly jobs in the new knowledge-based economy require a college degree. Can California's higher education system keep pace with the economy's ever-increasing demand for college graduates? We'll ask Sarah Bohn, Patrick Murphy, and Radhika Mehlotra from the Public Policy Institute of California, as well as Dorothy Leland, the Chancellor from the University of California, Merced.
Additional funding for the Maddy report made possible by a grant from The Wonderful Company, harvesting health and happiness around the world. From the California Channel at the State Capitol and the Maddy Institute, it's the Maddy Report with Executive Director of the Maddy Institute, Mark Keppler.
Welcome. Despite a strong economy, California has among the highest poverty rates and greatest income inequality in the nation. Can a college degree reduce poverty and close that income gap? Our guest is Sarah Bohn, who is the Director of Research and Senior Fellow at the Public Policy Institute of California, and she's looked at these very questions, so welcome back to the Maddy Report.
Thank you.
So how essential is a college degree for economic mobility? Is college worth it?
College, the value of a college degree is at almost an all-time high in the data that we are looking at. A college graduate in California earns on average $80,000. Compare that to somebody with a high school diploma earning about $36,000 a year on average. So really the value of a college degree is hard to overstate.
You know, one of the things I was looking at your research was I thought was really interesting was that how the earning potential of parents versus their kids has changed over time. And your statistics indicate that in the 40s, those born in the 40s, only 89% did better than their parents. Today, 49%.
That's right.
Wow, I mean that's pretty startling to all those of us who have children, want them to do better than we did. So the benefits of college will go beyond simply wages. What are some of the other benefits?
In addition to earning higher wages, college graduates are more likely to find a job, to remain employed, especially that's true in recessions, which I think is really important for us to remember in California. At the same time, college graduates tend to have jobs that offer other benefits like health insurance, paid vacation time, retirement plans, and that sort of thing. All of these things help with kind of economic well-being and mobility over time.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm going way back when I was in grad school. There was something called the dual labor market theory, and they talked about, the labor market isn't just one thing, it's two things. It's the kind of the skilled workers, they have one labor market, and the unskilled have a different labor market, and so you want to be on the right side of that, and college helps that. So let's talk about the equity gap. Does college help kind of close that, and does it depend where you go to school, whether it's a UC or a CSU or a private school?
Yeah, there's a big gap across groups. Students who come from low-income backgrounds, who are from minority demographics, tend to have lower kind of college attainment rates. And it really starts in high school or even earlier, where they kind of we start seeing these equity gaps, and they just persist throughout kind of the pipeline to college degree. But graduation rates at the UCs are much higher, or really the highest across our public institutions. CSU is a little bit behind that, and community colleges behind that still. And those equity gaps kind of go hand in hand with that. So it really does matter where you start in college.
Well, let me kind of go back a little bit on those questions. So most Californians, 66%, don't have a college degree, particularly true among certain socioeconomic and demographic groups. That represent a majority of California high school students. So why do they have much lower college enrollment rates than their peers?
I think, there's a lot of potential answers to that, and we don't know fully. One leading explanation is just differences in information. So understanding what is required to be able to enter college, and then information about financial aid, which is really critical, especially for our students from low-income families, to understand what's available to them through state programs or college programs that can assist with the cost of college, which is a big hurdle to a lot of families today.
Yeah, it's also, too, if your parents have not gone to college, they can't help you navigate the system, right? It's challenging.
That's right.
First generation.
There's a big gap between students, just in terms of the background of their parents.
And one of the things you see a lot, CSU certainly talk about this in particular, is how much they affect economic mobility of these they have a lot of first generation students that are going through the system that it really helps. You've noted in your research that more students are eligible for college, but an equity gap remains. What are the numbers in terms of high school graduation rates, college preparation, those kinds of things?
Yeah, one of the striking numbers in my mind is the gap gap between students with different income backgrounds. So 67% of recent high school graduates from low-income families go to college. That actually sounds reasonably high to me, but when you compare that to students from high-income families, 88% of them go on to college. So there's a real divide there, just according to kind of the economic standing of your family.
So you were talking about some of the actions that are needed to help kind of improve the situation. So what are some of the things you think need to be done?
So we talked about information, just in terms of requirements to get into college, and also information about financial aid. I think there's more that we could do from a policy perspective, and individual colleges could do on the financial aid front, because tuition is now just a half or so of the cost of college.
Right.
Housing and all of that adds a lot to the burden that students and families face. I would add that colleges in California have improved in graduation rates and closing equity gaps a little bit over the past 10 years. And so there's a lot of promising strategies that we can build on. And I think that's good for our state. We actually, do pretty well compared to other state colleges and elite colleges in enrolling a demographically mixed student body.
Okay, up next we're going to talk about access to higher education in California. That conversation in a moment. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. I'm Mark Keppler with the Maddy Institute. The Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California projects that by 2030, the state's going to have a shortfall of over 1 million college grads if things don't change. The good news is the gap is closing. The bad news, according to our guests, Patrick Murphy and Radhika Mehlotra with the PPIC, is that the state's historical underinvestment in maintenance of its four-year public universities will impede efforts to close that gap. So welcome to the Maddy Report.
Thank you.
Patrick, we'll start with you first. From what I've read, there's been kind of a multi-pronged approach to help increase access to four-year colleges, even two-year colleges. What's been the effect?
The effect, as you say, is more good news. We've got it coming from two directions. We've got the high school students, with more of them being prepared, completing the requirements they need to be accepted. And then we also have it from the community colleges that are sort of streamlining and starting to prepare what we think of it will be a wave of transfers being ready to go to either the CSU or UC campus.
Which is pretty important. I mean, that's an important track. It's amazing to me that a lot of at least in the past, they haven't coordinated the community college to the four-year jump, and they're seeing there's real value there.
Right. And with that, too, is that we're getting a lot of students who, in the past, at least in terms of economic circumstances, wouldn't necessarily be getting prepared or wouldn't necessarily being there. So we're closing that gap a little bit too, which is a real big part of it.
Yeah, okay. Well, Radhika, let me ask you this. A big part of the problem has been the declining investments in campus infrastructure. Can you explain the magnitude of the problem?
Yeah, so in 2005, state capital appropriations for full-time students were about $1,100 per student. And if we fast forward that to 10 years, so in 2015, that number fell to $59 per student.
$59?
Yep.
Wow.
And around 2008, it peaked at $1,800, but we haven't really recovered from the recession in terms of capital dollars.
That's a big hit. It's interesting, infrastructure, when you think about it, a lot of donors who want to give money, they don't want to give it to pipes, or they want to give it to a building, but that's the stuff that needs to be maintained.
You can't see that little brass plaque next to the heating unit.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. So Patrick, let me ask you this. So you report, there's a report that you have that notes that reduced state controls and legislative oversight has meant that these infrastructure decisions are increasingly being made at the local campus level. And that may not align with state goals and needs. So what's the right balance between central control versus maybe local control?
And the trade-off is in some ways this idea of a statewide oversight. We would like to see the campuses increase their capacity to have more students on the campus. And yet at the campus level, we do want to have them to be able to take stock of their situation and figure out what their first need is. And somewhere in there needs to be a balance. The systems are starting to play more of a role. We would like to see perhaps a little bit more transparency in how that happens. One
of the issues, and sometimes you do it at a local level, that people may not know what's going on, and maybe you need a little bit more transparency. Though I would assume if I was a college president, I'd want to have control of what was going on my campus, right? Yep. And they would argue who would know more than them locally what's going on. Radhika, let me ask you, in your report you state that there are different implications for the UC, the CSU, and California's community colleges. Can you explain the differences?
Sure. So in terms of the UC, we're seeing that administrators, because of the decentralized process and the declining in state investment, we're seeing that administrators are having to create capital plans that meet campus needs, but also ones that can be financed, which means that they're relying increasingly on external financing sources. So whether that's philanthropy or public-private partnerships.
But UCs can do that, right? Because UCs have,
Right.
I want to invest in UCLA or UC Berkeley. But,
that's right.
Okay,
and the concern there is that the incentives that those funding sources create may not necessarily run, parallel to what the state or
Right.
The system's goals are.
So then we turn to CSU. What about the CSU? Have a lot of students in the CSU.
Right.
How are they doing in terms of infrastructure and financing this stuff?
And they have the same challenges that the UC does, but that they're persistently underinvested in terms of, across the board, but especially in capital. So what that means is that they just don't have the resources, the philanthropy resources, like you said.
One thing I have noticed is that Cal States have gotten much more aggressive in philanthropy, but it's still an uphill climb because everybody's asking for dollars. What about the community colleges?
Well, they've always had a decentralized process that decisions are made at the local level. They can tax and borrow.
They're a lot like K-12, right?
Exactly.
And so they have a 55% approval rate to get something passed for money, and so it's a different financial model.
That's right.
So Patrick, what does this all mean? I mean, what conclusions you draw?
The fact is that we have not been investing to the extent that we have. If we want to have more spaces for students, we're going to have to create more spaces for students, which probably means investing in not only to catch up on the deferred maintenance, but actually building some more bricks and mortar buildings so students can attend classrooms, live on campus, et cetera.
Okay, well, I want to thank very much Patrick Murphy from PPIC and Radhika Mehlotra as well. Up next, we're going to talk about an innovative approach at the UC's newest campus, UC Merced, with the chancellor of that campus, Dorothy Leland. That conversation in a moment. This is Mark Keppler with the Maddy Report. Welcome back. I'm Mark Keppler with the Maddy Institute. UC Merced, opening in 2005, was the first American student-centered research university built in the 21st century, right here in the Valley. Its third chancellor, Dorothy Leland, is our guest. Welcome back to the Maddy Report.
Thank you.
So can you tell our audience a little bit about the history and mission of UC Merced?
Sure. We were built to provide more access to students in the entire state of California, but particularly the San Joaquin Valley, to the University of California. As you know, the Valley is blessed with wonderful community colleges and California State University campuses, but it did not have a University of California campus.
Right, that was the missing link. I mean, students in the Valley wanted to go to a University of California, they had to leave, and now they don't.
That's right.
So let me ask you about kind of the socioeconomic and demographic backgrounds of your students.
Sure.
How do they compare to other UC campuses?
We are by far the most diverse of all the UC campuses, and our students predominantly come from underrepresented minorities, and from low-income and first-generation families. So to give you an idea of what that means, in numbers, 73% of our students are first-generation, 64% are Pell recipients, and we'd have even more Pell recipients if our over 600 undocumented students were eligible for federal financial aid.
That's amazing. And I was looking at some of the statistics on your university, and high percentage of Hispanic students, almost 55% Hispanic, which is very high. You do a good job of attracting people throughout the state, actually. I mean, you do have a large representation from the Valley, about a quarter of your students, but you're attracting students from San Francisco and Los Angeles, et cetera.
Right.
So a big draw. So let me ask you this. The impact of obtaining a degree from UC Merced, I'm wondering what impact it has on the economic and social mobility of your students. I mean, I would think it'd be substantial.
Yeah, if you look at national data on the impact of a degree in general, a bachelor's degree in general, you can expect over double a lifetime increase in your lifetime income. University of California is even higher. So do we have a lot of data on that yet? No. You know, we barely have an alum now who's 30.
Right.
But,
you're fairly new college.
But we do know our students are getting good jobs in diverse industries, that they have low levels of debt, and so they're doing well.
But you're also, I mean, you're graduating students. I mean, they're coming there. One of the problems is they come to college and they drop out. That's not happening at UC Merced. No. You've got a very good graduation rate.
Yeah.
I think it was something like, when I was reading, 16% higher than the rate predicted by U.S. News and World Report.
That's right.
And that puts you in, what, the top two?
Number two.
Number two in
Number two in the nation.
Wow.
And we are the only research university in the nation that has over 60% of our students as Pell recipients and has over 60% of those students graduate.
So you're surrounding them with programs to make sure that they're successful
That's
throughout
right.
the college career.
These are amazingly talented students, and they are hard workers and creative, but they haven't always had all of the advantages that they need to be successful in college. So we have a lot of programs in place that are meant to help close that gap.
And that's incredibly helpful. I'm a first-generation college student, and I have a graduate degree and a law degree, because my parents always pushed education. But boy, I tell you, when I went to college, I had no idea what I was getting into.
I was also first generation. What's the syllabus? What am I supposed to do with this thing?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really, people don't realize when your parents can't assist you in that, and you're coming from an area maybe that doesn't have a lot of folks that go to college, it's a big jump.
It's a big jump.
It's a big leap. The other thing I wanted to mention here was you actually have been rated by Washington Monthly. In 2018, you're ranked number 14th in the nation on social mobility.
Yeah.
So if your target is to get these kids to move up socially and economically, it seems like you're doing that, so that's great. But let me ask you this. So what would you say are the greatest accomplishments of UC Merced up to this point?
Well, you just named some of them. I mean, the remarkable success of our students, I think, over time will change the perception of the nation, that students like ours can be successful in a high-powered research university environment and be an amazing talent pipeline for the state of California and beyond. That is a success story. We're attracting amazingly talented faculty from the best research universities in the country and sometimes internationally. Most of them are young, but as their research matures, you're going to hear more and more about them. And one day we will have our first Nobel Prize winner.
Okay.
And I think the fact that we started up in a very difficult environment. The doors of the campus were opened about 14 years ago, and then a Great Recession hit, and the state lost its ability to fund academic and the construction of academic and research buildings, and so we were able to create a way to continue to make the campus grow and thrive in a very difficult environment.
And we're going to talk more about that in a moment with UC Merced Chancellor Dorothy Leland. That conversation in a moment. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. I'm Mark Keppler with the Maddy Institute. We're talking with UC Merced Chancellor Dorothy Leland about some of the things happening on that campus. One of the things that's happening is a major expansion. You're going to basically moving to 10,000 students, and you're going to get there by a $1.3 billion investment by the University of California and this unique public-private partnership you've got going on. A lot of people say this is going to be the model going forward for other universities. What's happening at UC Merced?
Well, it's amazing. If you go out there, you can see a campus that in a period of 3.5 years will actually double its physical capacity with every kind of building that you see in a college campus. It is jointly financed through...
By the way, it is a beautiful campus. It is in a great setting.
It is, and you'll be amazed. I invite everybody who's listening to come see what's happening there. So it's a partnership between the University of California and a private developer who has considerable financial stake in this project as well. And it has allowed us to...
it's just not one building. You're using this partnership for parking lots. I mean, it's
everything.
Everything.
So it's everything you need on a college campus, from roadways, parking lots, research buildings, residence halls, dining halls, recreational facilities, health facilities.
So people are looking at this UC Merced model, and people are saying maybe this is something we need to replicate. I want to ask you a question about infrastructure, because we had a discussion in the earlier segment about where should these decisions be made? State has a goal of graduating more college students. Should these infrastructure decisions be made at the state level, kind of a central plan or something, for lack of a better term, or should they be made at the local level, or some combination?
I think, I don't know if we need additional bureaucracy. I think we need good communication channels, and we need to make sure that capital projects align with state needs and state goals.
There was an organization called the California Post-Secondary Education Commission that was shut down by Governor Brown as a cost-saving move in 2011, and Governor Newsom is talking about possibly bringing something like that back. Would that help in terms of the coordination?
It could. Let's see what the shape and form and model of it is. But meanwhile, I think that in certain sectors of the state, there's strong coordination, as you know, right here in the Valley, that the community colleges, the CSUs and the UC, as well as some of our private school sectors, communicate regularly. We have an association. We have common goals. We work together.
And
so,
smoothing that transition from community college to Cal State or to UC is really important. It then shortens the time it takes a student to graduate.
It does. It does.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Now, I wanted to ask you about some of the things, in the future. What do you think are going to be kind of the future projects and programs? And I'd like you to talk about that, but I'd also like you to talk about this Valley to Valley initiative that you're involved with. So,
well, the future is first to get to 10,000 students, and then we're.
And where are you now? You're about.
We're a little under 8,000.
Okay.
And we're at the beginning stage of looking at our next long-range development plan, and so.
But your full build-out, I read, was 25,000 students in 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same size as Fresno State.
Yeah, it's a pretty aggressive plan.
Yeah. So that's the initial thing that you're working on. But what about this Valley to Valley initiative?
Well, I've been a part of that since its beginning, and this Valley Valley initiative is about connecting the talent and the resources that are in the San Joaquin Valley with the talent and resources that are in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. It is something that I think will have some tremendous benefits for the Valley, economic and educational and other benefits from the Valley. And I'm really pleased to see leaders from all areas of the San Joaquin Valley and the greater San Francisco Bay Area really focusing on
the Silicon
building this
Valley
connection.
The Silicon Valley is very interested, and
Yes.
it's interesting. People look at what's happening with the ACE train that's
Yes.
coming down to Merced, that goes to San Jose, goes to Silicon Valley. Then you think about high-speed rail. If they build that from Bakersfield to Merced, all of a sudden Merced becomes kind of a focal point of going either to the Bay Area or going to Sacramento with the University of California. That could be really significant.
UC Merced could be the transportation hub that makes that connection possible. And it could bring tremendous economic development to the community and the broader region. And I really look forward to continuing to work on this with all of our partners.
That's very exciting. I want to thank UC Merced Chancellor Dorothy Leland for being with us, also Sarah Bohn and Patrick Murphy with the Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California. This is Mark Keppler for the Maddy Institute. Thanks for joining us.
The views expressed in the Maddy Report are those of the individuals participating in the program and do not necessarily reflect those of the California Channel or the Maddy Institute. If you'd like to share your thoughts about the points and opinions expressed on the Maddy Report, visit our website at maddyinstitute.org.